What is going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to the 817 podcast, where we talk about the lovely city of Fort Worth, Texas. We get into politics, business, culture, news. If it impacts you as a Fort Worthian, we discuss it. We give you one big story, 3 short stories, wins, losses, and actions. But today we have a special edition where we talk about what is the Fort Worth way. And today we have Sherrod, who wrote the famous article, Who Runs Fort Worth, in November of 1995. 30 years later, we assess that article, look at what it looks like today, and what can we do to build a better Fort Worth. Katie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, you don't believe me, but I'm telling you, people have been excited for us to get you to sit down in this seat to talk with us. So we're thrilled. But what is your Fort Worth story?
Well, I grew up in West Texas in a little town called Iran. You'll know exactly where it is. I'm sure it's between Fort Stockton and Sheffield.
Okay.
Yeah, right?
No idea.
and then we moved to Odessa. Fort Worth was our big city. It was where we came to tour Mrs. Baird's Bakery, and we came to the Fat Stock Show. And I was a town girl, but my ranch girl friends often had things that they entered in the stock show and occasionally would win big bucks. So Fort Worth was sort of the big city. Then I went off to college at the University of Houston, got a degree in journalism, and my husband got a job at General Dynamics, and we moved to Fort Worth, and I got a job at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram in 1969. And that's how I ended up in Fort Worth working for the newspaper that I'd read daily in my home in West Texas, because at that time the Star-Telegram was delivered to the doorsteps of people out in West Texas.
Now you can't only get it 3 days a week here in Fort Worth.
There you go.
I had it delivered all the way up until that wasn't even an option anymore.
I did too. Yeah. And now I'm reading it online.
Yes.
True confessions. I never thought I would say that, but
Yeah, I've been trying to get the newspaper to come back like the vinyl. You know how kids, like, if we can get these hipster kids to, like, buy into newspapers.
You think Gen Z is going to get all excited about that?
I don't know.
Somehow.
EJ hangs out in coffee shops with real newspapers. And sometimes you'll hear the rustling of real newspapers on this podcast because he brings the papers here.
Oh, wow.
Because I was journalism as well, University of Oklahoma. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So really, really love journalism. But not everyone does right
now.
No,
not everyone
we're
does
around.
right now. And I have to say, some people who call themselves journalists, I am appalled at. And I'm also appalled, for instance, by the news that the Dallas Morning News is getting rid of all their copy editors, and they're going to be edited by people out of Houston. They will be reporting in Dallas, but the editors that will be editing their copy will be in Houston at the Hearst newspaper. Now, I'm here to tell you that they will probably not know all the names of the streets in Dallas or all the neighborhoods and names and the way the people of Dallas refer to themselves, because every city has things like that. For instance, in Fort Worth, there's a Rivercrest neighborhood that's all one word, and a Rivercrest Country Club that is 2 separate words. If you don't know that, when you make that mistake in the newspaper, the entire west side of Fort Worth discounts everything else you say from that point on.
Yeah, and how does that copy editor from nowhere catch
How
it?
are they going to know that?
It sounds like a similar thing to what Bud Kennedy shared with me about that people who write the articles sometimes are not writing the headlines of those articles.
They rarely write the headlines.
Yeah, that was so disturbing to me because I would read these headlines.
That's been a thing since I was a baby reporter.
Yeah.
We don't write our headlines. Copy editors do, which would often end up in screaming matches. Well, I shouldn't say that.
But even more disturbing,
we would yell at one another. What headline? You put that on my story?
Well, I know, Wesley, you have some context you want to set us up for this around how we're going to start the discussion.
Yes.
So go ahead.
This is an episode that I've been really wanting to do for a long time. A very special episode about the Fort Worth Way. And so in preparation for this, at one of our gathers, we interviewed several members who come quite regularly about how do they define the Fort Worth Way. Because that's something I notice is that a lot of us who know the phrase, we all have slightly different definitions of it. And so I edited together a little section of how we all define it.
I define the Fort Worth Way as not rocking the boat, doing any and everything possible to appease people and situations that might not really work for everyone, just so you don't rock the boat. Instead of having backbone and confidence and courage to challenge things even when it's hard. People would rather it look nice on the surface than really work and be good for everybody under the surface and all the way around.
It's this idea that Fort Worth exists in tiers, and the people who are at the top are the ones who make all the decisions. They sometimes allow the rest of us to think we're being heard, but the Fort Worth way is all about making sure decisions are made behind the scenes, that the power stays in that same tier always, and people aren't really heard.
It's hard to break into the city to feel like your voice is heard. There is a structure in place that it seems like maybe old money talks and everybody else listens.
How I define the Fort Worth way is keeping business as usual, and honestly having no real imagination or intention for the future of Fort Worth.
I think that it's more of a legacy thing. It's more of a this is what we did yesterday and this is what we're going to do tomorrow, and that goes from like yesterday, today, tomorrow, but it also goes from like decade to decade to decade. So I think it seems like it is a lack of evolving.
I define the Fort Worth way as being really comfortable doing things the way they've always been done, and not being able to recognize that the only constant is change, and we need to always be adapting and evolving and responding to how the world is changing around us. So I feel like the Fort Worth way is just kind of stuck in how things have been done before.
So the Fort Worth way for me is this representation of an establishment in Fort Worth that likes to strategize, make decisions behind the scenes, but it's an intersectionality of key elements that include government, institutions, industry, philanthropy, and nonprofits. And it's their way to continue to have control over what gets developed, who benefits, and who are the individual leaders that get spotlighted to be able to do the work on their behalf. And we need to really break down this Fort Worth way because it does not center our diverse communities nor the needs of actual community members living throughout Fort Worth.
I really can relate to those comments on the video, and I think the part that's missing for me is like the weapon that the Fort Worth way uses is its sleepiness, because we really pride ourselves in feeling like a small town. Now, I'm from small town Texas, and I appreciate Fort Worth small town feel, but we have a dozen sleeping panthers sleeping around this city for a reason, to show us that we are asleep, and that kind of bravado and energy kind of maintains where we don't really disrupt when something wrong is going on. And so to me, I feel like all the things that we heard on that video is for sure how the Fort Worth way is set up. But I feel like their strategy to keep their power is the sleepiness that this town has in stepping out.
Well, of course, the sleeping panther was an insult from Dallas to Fort Worth in the beginning.
Yeah.
That's why, we adopted it as a screw you to Dallas, but the screw you part of it was that, of course, Fort Worth wasn't sleepy at all. That you, Dallas, you just keep thinking that. You just keep thinking that, and we're just going to come along and we're going to take over everything. And we're going to outbid you, we're going to outmarket you, we're going to outgrow you, we're going to do all of that because you think we're sleepy and we know we're not. Well, that was a great attitude back then, but I don't think it's maintained. Yeah. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that it's interesting whenever this idea of the Fort Worth way comes up. Having been on council was when I first got totally immersed in it. And I was surrounded by people who constantly said it was a good thing, because it was Mayor Moncrief, former Mayor Moncrief, would say the Fort Worth way is that we come together and we agree upon things and find a path to move forward. And that niceness that we've referred to a little bit too, that being sleepy or being nice keeps us from being as, I guess, activated and proactive and progressive as we could be. And it makes people feel like they're a part of the decisions because they're invited often to the table. But then, the decision makers who actually make the the decisions and hold those seats of power don't really necessarily have to do what it is that is said by the people that are invited to the table.
They
And
don't
then
fear any
often-
consequences.
Yeah, and often those people who are invited to the table are, specific people that they know are not going to upset the apple cart or disrupt things that they would like to accomplish.
And in the defense of those people, they've been very carefully trained that if they're going to get anything done, if they have any hope of getting any piece of what they said accepted, they have to play that game.
Yeah.
So I don't blame them, and they are doing the best they can in a system that is set up to silence them and to ignore them. And I mean, politeness, like I said earlier, is just organized indifference. And well, we have to go back to our history. Texas is a state. We fought for independence, not out of some grand thing like the Declaration of Independence, was because we wanted to keep on owning slaves. Mexico was going to outlaw slavery, and we didn't like that. We wanted to keep owning other human beings, and so we had a war, and we won our independence so we could do that. So white supremacist ideology is embedded in the DNA of this state. And it is embedded in the DNA of this city, and we kid ourselves if we think it's not.
Yeah.
It's embedded in white people's DNA. I can say I'm not racist all day long, but that's bull, because the world I grew up in layered that in me. And it's a daily fight for me to remember that, acknowledge it, and try to overcome it, because it's a problem for me. I do not mind being made uncomfortable by that. But I would say at the heart of it, the base of the Fort Worth Way is let's not make rich white people uncomfortable. Please do not make rich white people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Early on, they had a good gig going because they were mentoring younger people and younger generations, and they got to pick which people that look like you got into the room. Well, that was done very carefully. And that the black community and the Hispanic community weren't stupid. They knew if they were going to get into the room, they had to be really, really smart about it. And they were, and they did, and they made some amazing changes. So I always resist any effort to say, well, they just gave up. They never gave up. They haven't given up to this day. The persistence is what amazes me. The fact that they haven't shot us all kind of amazes me. But the persistence and the resilience of those communities are something that everyone should honor and emulate. I just think that niceness is the curse of this city.
Wesley, you haven't given us your Fort Worth way. What do you have over there?
Yeah, the way I typically define it for people
And he grew
is-
up here.
Yeah.
So he's born and raised.
Born and raised.
So he got that all in him as well.
Yeah, but I always tell people that to me, the Fort Worth Way is upholding the status quo. It is people making the people in power making decisions in back rooms that have no community input, and then doing the bare minimum for a performative community input, and nothing really changes. What the people in power want is what happens, and it takes mountains to move to change that. And I'm curious, like, it feels like your article sort of illuminated what the Fort Worth Way is. And so I feel like you've become like the go-to person for defining the Fort Worth Way. So, and I was very surprised that in your article, it never once mentioned that phrase. So when you're defining it to people who aren't from around here, maybe aren't even from Texas, how do you define the Fort Worth Way?
Well, that article defined it. I deliberately chose not to use that phrase in the article. One, I was writing it for a Dallas audience.
Well, I'm curious about that. Like, I'm sure at the time you were working at Star Telegram.
No, I was working at KERA, and Chris
Gotcha.
Tucker was the editor of the Dallas, of the D magazine, and he and I had done a documentary together, My City's Better Than Yours.
I like that.
Between Dallas and Fort Worth, and of course Fort Worth was best. And so he said, would you do this? And I thought, oh, okay, because at that time people didn't talk out loud about who ran Fort Worth. And I thought, okay, that's what he's asking me to do, is just say it all out loud.
Yeah.
So I did. Only after interviewing, I must have interviewed 60 to 70 people for that article just to
And
get.
not all of them named in the article.
Yep, I noticed that.
The only way they would talk to me was if I
Right.
agreed not to name them, which was, and that's why I kept putting in there. They did not agree to be, because I felt that was
Yeah.
an illustration of exactly what goes on in this city. But I also wanted to be fair to Ed Bass, particularly, to the Basses. And I mean, I think they are pretty benign in this city, in the whole. I think we're very lucky because not all of our really wealthy people are benign. And like I said, thank God they have really good taste,
Yeah.
which they do.
I mean, the quotes about Jane Jacobs and what Ed was looking to do in downtown, all to come. That's. I mean, I knew all that, and I know that there continues to be some of that in
Right.
the work that has been done in more recent years. And so I think that we're lucky to have that. It was interesting when I was on council that everyone, whenever there was a money problem, people would say, well, just have the Basses do it. Just have the Basses do it.
And the Basses fought back against that.
Yeah.
The Basses very gently would push back, and sometimes not so gently would push back against that. That was one of the reasons Bob wanted that bond issue on Will Rogers to be the Bass Hall not downtown.
I'd never heard that story before. That blew my mind.
Oh, and it did not, I mean, he did not realize what a buzzsaw he was walking into. People were already angry about all the money and attention being given to the cultural district. And this idea had been floated and floated and floated about satellite cultural districts around. And it was like, oh, that's a cute idea. And we're going to do this. And people, because they could vote, because that's the voice they've not been able to take away from us. People can vote. And once they can vote, their voices do get heard most of the time. And this was preceded by the zoo fight, the zoo fee fo fight. Were any of you in town for that? Probably not.
I wasn't.
That was when the city of Fort Worth handed the Fort Worth Zoo over to the Fort Worth Zoological Association, headed by Ramona Bass. And they wanted to raise the price, take over some more lands, soccer fields, stuff, and run the zoo, turn it into a world-class attraction. Well, I think the fee for the zoo then at that time was, well, it was free or $1. I can't remember. Do you know what the fee to the zoo is now? It's $20 a person.
I just went the other day.
$20 a person.
And we just saw that same thing happen with the Botanic Gardens as well. Used to be free, used to be owned by the city. They
That's
sold
right.
it off.
You
Now
could go anytime and meditate, and not anymore. So 2 huge attractions have just been pulled out from, I would say, 60% of the city.
Yeah.
And I think I'm being generous in that estimation.
I want to make sure I heard you, because you said you feel lucky that we had the Basses.
Yes.
And then, so do you still feel that way 30 years later?
I think so. I think their track record shows that they live on ground level in Fort Worth. I mean, they can travel wherever they want, but they live here. And their children go to school here. And one of them once said to me that actually this money is a curse. I worry about the safety of my children all the time. They are citizens of this city just like we are, in a way that I think we are really, really lucky to have. I think we're lucky to have Ed, quirky Ed, who was the arty, weird Ed, and the fun past. And he's funny, and he will go walk a construction site with you. He would show up at City Hall. He didn't send his minions down there. He came.
Yeah.
He walked through downtown. I mean, he wanted to live downtown. That's the story I told in that story. And he could have just decreed that it was going to happen.
Yeah.
But he and the rest of the family don't work that way. If the city says no, they won't do it.
What is the new wrinkle now with the addition of Sasha Bass? Like, that seems like to be the topic now in Sundance. Today.
Yes, that
and how
is.
it moves.
There is the Sasha factor.
How would you, if you now were writing it again, or like writing it now, like how do you feel like you would explore, because obviously you may not know, but if you wanted to write an updated, how would you go at like exploring that? What questions are you trying to answer?
I would like to talk to Sasha about what her vision is. I mean, it seems to me that part of what she was trying to do, and this is just from watching from afar, was to highlight Hispanic, her heritage, and the shop owners and the artists and the things that were being highlighted in Sundance Square. I think that's a laudable goal. However, the way she went about it was not very strategic. And I mean, just from a business point of view, I didn't think she handled it very well. Mm-hmm. I've also gotten the impression from just watching that she doesn't ask for advice or take it very well. Mm-hmm. She has her vision. She's going to do it. She is Mrs. Bass, and which is so not the way the Basses generally have done their. And I think that's one of the reasons Fort Worth has pushed back so hard. They cannot believe that a member of the Bass family is acting like this.
Mm. One of the parts of the article that I found interesting were the tiers. And partially why I found it interesting is because I can see where I have moved around in them, having been elected to office and that sort of thing. But can you explain to the folks in the audience kind of what those tiers are and how that
first
came
of all,
to be a part?
It's tiers as in layers, not tears as in
crying.
crying.
No.
Just wanted to make that plain because it might be a little confusing. Well, I had to come up with some imagery. So I used the imagery of a stack of tiers. A lighthouse, as it were, and up on the top tier were the really rich, the old Fort Worth families that have been here from the 1890s, that were there, and their descendants, and the wealthy, for the most part, West Side. Down below that, you have the mayor, the city council, the other rich people, business leaders, corporate leaders and stuff, and below that you have teachers and professionals and, again, maybe some CEOs, because there's a little bit of slide. And then down here you have the rest of us. Now people say, okay, where are the Basses in this? Well, the Basses were like the big light on top of the lighthouse. They're the ones that are shining all down. And the thing about a tiered thing like this is the people on the top can't see anything below them. Just like you can't see all of the chair you're sitting in. They can't see all of that tier. They see the piece of it that they're sitting on. And that's been the limiting factor in this.
I also liked how you pointed out that it works from the top down, where it's like if the second tier wants something that the first tier doesn't, nothing gets done.
Nothing gets done.
But if the only way it could is if all the tiers below unanimously agree, which kind of goes back to what you were saying. Like if there's a vote, then we can stop this stuff.
And that's what they were able to do with that bond issue. Mm-hmm. And it sent shockwaves through the upper tiers. They could not believe that had been so soundly rejected.
Mm-hmm. I also thought it was interesting how you mentioned in the third tier, the professionals, how most of them work for the people in the second tier. That's like city staff. That's the people who work for the big corporations that are in that second tier of power. And they can only get away with what the second tier allows.
Well, unless they're willing to risk their income.
Exactly.
That definitely is something that I think still stands today.
Yes.
Oh, I absolutely do.
Especially among city staff and all the organizations that Maddie Parker has sent to public comment to thank her lately.
Well, Bob Bolin, when he was mayor for 10 years, something like that. He actually, when we voted single-member districts, first of all, that was a shock.
Well, and for context, for people who don't know what a single-member district is, could you tell us what it is?
Okay. At one point, we voted for all of our city council members at large. The whole city voted on who was city council, and see if you can guess which side of town most of them came from.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, that's the west side. So people began working to get single-member districts where they would vote from where you live and elect your own representative. And by a miracle, which was only because they weren't paying attention, it passed. And suddenly we were going to elect people from the east side of Fort Worth, from the short south side, from the south. What? We're going to have people that don't look like us? Well, to their credit, they did not sue to stop it or to change it. They just decided to manage it because it never occurred to them they would not be able to manage this new reality.
And when you're saying they, are you talking Basses on the Light Pole or Tier 1?
Oh, Tier 1.
Okay.
The 7th Street Gang.
Yeah.
Which was the precursors to the Basses, which were all the wealthy people that had offices, including the Star Telegram, on 7th Street. So it was the bankers and the publishers of the newspapers, because there were 2 at that time, and the big CEOs and those things. That was the 7th Street Gang.
Looking at 30 years now, I think a lot of like new money or maybe growing of money, did it change anything? I know, Ross Perot Jr. and Mike Berry purchased Alliance over the last 30 years and accelerated business growth over there. You also have John Goff, who kind of showed up as well. He's doing the Crescent and all that jazz. What has maybe changed from the wealth players, in your opinion? Just names?
Names.
But like how it works and who wants power? You don't
Who
feel
gets
like
tax abatements?
Because in your article you talked about how Perot Jr. he didn't act like the others.
He was one of the first, and he wanted, not all of them do, he wanted to become part of Fort Worth. And Fort Worth they're open to that. I mean, to their credit. But there's some rules. If you're going to be part of them, you have to donate to things that are happening in the community. You have to support the museums, the library. I mean, you have to put your money where your mouth is. And he was not doing that. And I mean, I will say the wealthy people in Fort Worth invest in Fort Worth in a way the wealthy people in Dallas and Houston and other cities do not. And I think Fort Worth is lucky for that. I mean, you have some people in Dallas that will put up a big ego thing called a building, but they don't really support the arts and things the way the people in Fort Worth do.
That's interesting because, I run an organization called Support Fort Worth Art, which is an arts advocacy organization. And the problem I am constantly running into is that, Dallas has $26 million go through their Office of Arts and Culture to support
the city.
Yes, through the city to support their arts ecosystem, whereas Fort Worth has $1.2 million.
And the reason is because they've always counted on the rich people to do that.
Exactly. Like, we hinge all of our bets on philanthropy to come through to save the day. And that is not a good long-term strategy. That is not an equitable strategy.
And it also doesn't set you up to challenge rich people who may be doing something that's harmful to the art scene.
Exactly. You do what they want.
It keeps you in thrall.
Yeah.
Yep.
To them.
Yeah. You become
Whereas
their
if we
puppet.
could get it funneled through a neutral, nothing's neutral, but something like that, it would be a steady stream of income instead of having to go hand in hand and ask the big foundations or just individual rich people.
I wonder, like, how does this also look now if you look at the growth of population in the sense of we've doubled in size since the article?
Right.
Majority minority city. You have
what you just said, the majority minority city scares them to death. When Baird Friedman was mayor, he was one of the mayor. He was probably the last mayor picked by the 7th Street Gang. He did not reach out to younger people to mentor because he was afraid of them. This was in the 60s and 70s, and we had riots in cities, not in Fort Worth, but that had happened. And they were determined, they being the 7th Street Gang, were determined that was not going to happen here. But Baird, Friedman, and the city council were very nervous about that. They spent a lot of time building alliances with the black community ministers, which was the way it kind of worked in those days. You went to the Black Ministerial Alliance, I can't say that word, and worked with, because they had power in their communities. Well, those men, and at that time they were all men, were not stupid. They were willing to open that door and walk into it if they felt it would help their communities. They also knew they had to figure out how to play that game, or they would just be quietly escorted off the scene. And they did a lot of good for their neighborhoods. doing that. Younger people, and not so young now, began to say, well, that's bull crap. We're not going to do that. We're not going to play that game. And they could see that happening. They have spent a lot of time in the intervening years trying to keep that from those communities understanding the power they have if they get organized and if they support political candidates like John Wiley Price. I will use an example from the story, is supported in Dallas. Mm-hmm. John Wiley Price does not worry about losing his job. Mm-hmm. And he will say anything he pleases to the power structure in Dallas, and has forever. And he can do that because the black community there will not let them harm him. Mm-hmm. And the white community knows it.
Yeah.
And we don't have anyone like that.
When the Race and Culture Task Force was formed, I felt like there was a seed or an element that could have grown from that.
I agree. I was on that Race and Culture Task Force.
I'm aware.
And I was so hopeful, well, carefully hopeful, and, working with people and seeing there were some moments when I was like, oh, this is going to be good. Well, of course, we put out our report, and they went, what was exactly what I was afraid was going to happen. They went, thank you very much, and they set it over there and
implemented very little.
And one of the big things was to have a police review board. Mm-hmm. What is the third rail of politics in any city is a police review board. It's hugely needed here. Mm-hmm. We can give and so they did lip service and set up an office. Is that office even?
It's still there.
It's still there.
Police oversight.
Still toothless.
Police oversight monitor.
Police oversight monitor. What a joke. Not the person. I want to emphasize. I'm not in no way.
Yeah.
But the job is impossible.
The limitations that have been placed upon
make it impossible.
Yeah.
In the article, you talk about, though, how, they act like they're listening to black and brown people.
Oh, they're good at that.
Yeah, and then, and so I guess,
I mean, do we have Spanish translators at our city council meeting?
No, we do not.
Do we?
That is
Let's see. The answer would be no, of course we don't.
You have to ask for it. And every year for 7 years serving on council, we talked about trying to make that better and never fixed it.
What proportion of our city are Hispanic?
35%. And when you live in our area, it's 65% of District 11 and household.
Right.
They did that smart city data, and majority of the households spoke Spanish in the house.
Yeah, I go to a church, an Episcopal church on the east side. We have a food pantry affiliate. I would say we feed 800 families a week, and I would say 80% of our clients are Hispanic.
Yeah,
we are teaching ourselves Spanish. As our volunteers who come there out of respect for them. And bless their hearts, they're so kind to us. They will walk with our volunteers and they go, this is how you say that. But they're so kind to our volunteers who come. Well, ICE has shown up in our parking lot, luckily on a day when we were getting food, terrified our volunteers, but we luckily had no clients there. So we, like a lot of other churches, have had the ACLU come in to teach us teach our volunteers what to do if ICE shows up while we're feeding hungry families.
I feel like we would have had a story. We didn't get a story on that, or
nothing happened. They just showed up and watched us watched our volunteers. I wasn't there that day. Watched them carry food in and put it on the shelves. We worship in a gym.
Yeah.
And the rest of the gym is food pallets, and over there is our worship. We literally worship among food pallets.
Yeah.
So this is high on our mind all the time. Yeah. But these are families, or what we call mixed families. Some are documented and some are not. Mm-hmm. So the ones that are documented come. We had to figure out ways to get food to the undocumented people that would keep them safe. And I tell you this not because we're so wonderful, but it's because what people that are doing what we're doing all over this city, all over this country are having to do right now. It's how do we keep our neighbors safe? Our neighbors safe from our government.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we're lucky that we are white privileged people, so we can actually do some of that, like take food home and wait a few hours to make sure nobody's following, and then take that food over to somebody's house. But you have to be careful you're not being followed.
Yeah.
Now,
Well-
we have to think about things like that right
It's
now.
terrifying.
Well, I think that's a part of, I think, a lot of the frustration that people have seen at City Council this year. There's been a lot of, because this is the year where Project 2025 has been being implemented in
The
Fort Worth.
obliviousness to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Fort Worth is, we have a younger council. We have a majority women council. We have a lot of minorities on the
looks
council.
good on the face
Yeah,
of
yeah.
it,
But
doesn't
why
it?
why are we not, standing up to protect, our food pantries?
Well, I think the
Yeah.
expectation is that the Fort Worth Way will maintain and that they will be immune from them being called. I mean, that's why you had a mayor get up and walk out of a council meeting because she was so mad. I have never seen a mayor of Fort Worth get up and walk out of a meeting. My jaw dropped. I mean, you are elected to do this job, and part of it is to take whatever is handed to you. Now, you don't have to take death threats. I'm not saying that. But people telling you that what you're doing is racist, yes, you have to sit there and listen to it.
Yeah.
You do. These are we the people.
Yeah.
There's a phrase for you.
Yeah.
That was what was so frustrating about the reduction of public comment, and because
it's
you
the
just sit there.
silencing of we the people.
Yeah.
That is exactly what they're doing and what they've been trying to do for a long time. They've just gotten more blatant about it. Tim O'Hare leading that charge.
Well, and even before that, it was a little bit gaslighting, because at the beginning, when this younger council got elected, they were all like, "You're not paying us very much. We are all younger and have young families and have other obligations, so we're not going to spend 24/7 representing you, because that's the council that you have, and this is the level at which you're paying us."
And I love that. You don't pay us very much. The fight to get pay for city council here was huge.
Yes.
I mean, and part of the pushback was they didn't want large salaries because they didn't want working class people to be able to serve. There, I said it out loud.
Yeah.
Just as a reminder, has anybody got the number in their head of how much city council gets paid right now?
$25,000. Yeah.
Which was better than nothing, because when we had nothing, it was rich white people mostly who could afford to serve.
But like Dallas,
But
is
even
in
with
the 50s, I
25,000,
think.
it's rich white people.
Yeah.
For the most part.
For the most part, because 25.
Yeah, you can't live off that.
You cannot live off that.
Another wrinkle I want to get your opinion on is how, let's say, the Fort Worth Way Republican establishment kind of been eaten alive by this like new right-wing Christian extremism of the Republican Party, right? You saw Tim O'Hare beat Betsy Price. You see Lee Wamsgans is the candidate, and what's nuts about that one is like Lee Wamsgans is getting endorsed by Ross Perot Jr. At least that's what she has on her website.
Yes.
So it's like it's to me, I'd be interested to, our listeners' dad's old Republican Party idea is no longer here, and like, what is the Fort Worth Way doing about? I feel like they should be more scared of them than us.
I think they should, but I think they've just rolled over in hopes that they won't get hurt. I think they're afraid, and they have just caved. Like, I'll be quiet and you won't hurt me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the cowardice has been really alarming to see.
The first time for me was last December with the Mercy Culture Oakhurst Neighborhood Council meeting, and like how powerful of a community organizing together to like ask for what they want and just got
steamrolled.
Yeah. And that was the moment. I was like, wow, even the Fort Worth Way.
And what that did is still reverberating in Oakhurst, let me tell you. And it has gotten people out to the polls.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that's going to happen is you make people angry enough, and they know this, which is why they're trying to discredit elections, is that they turn out to vote, which is how Taylor Ramette almost came within 3,000 votes of winning outright in Senate District 9.
Yes.
My mind just went totally blank.
Give me your opinion on kind of the mayor's tenure. Obviously, there's been a lot going on with
Mayor Parker.
Yeah, Mayor Parker. But what is your overall kind of just perspective or thoughts you would like to like be out there?
I really thought Maddie would be braver.
Mm-hmm.
I really thought she would be braver, that she would speak up more, that she would push the line a little bit as to what good little Republicans do. I really thought she would do that.
Yeah.
And instead, I would think she's kind of doubled down in her, as my grandson said, it's the west sideness of it all. Yeah, I think, I don't know why. I don't know where the lack of courage is. If it's worry about their income levels. We've all seen on a national level how a president who's willing to call a woman reporter piggy and threaten to kill members of Congress, to hang members of Congress because they disagreed with him, and he reminded the armed services of the oath they take to the Constitution, not to a president. I think it has filtered down over every Republican on this planet to their shame, to their eternal shame. And I think history will call them to account.
Yeah. I'd be interested also, because what I understand is that, like, y'all can tell me if I'm wrong here because I'm a 2017 Fort Worthian. So, is that like Mayor Moncrief was actually a Democrat, but now, like, if you look at how they live and exist today,
yeah,
I mean,
well,
it
the
feels a little MAGA
Democrat
Moncrief.
Republican line,
Yeah,
got
like what?
a little,
How's
got
that?
a little blurred there.
Yeah, I guess that's
Well,
what.
back in the day, I think Kay Granger was courted by both Democrats
was.
and Republicans to run for Congress.
And everyone was like, okay, won't ever go to the Republican Party.
then she did.
And then she did. And we
Yeah.
were all like, what?
Yikes.
I think that goes back to that nonpartisanness of council and mayor of the past that clearly can no longer be.
Well, that's a
Tied
joke
to,
now.
yeah.
Nobody even believes that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, even when I ran in 14, people would ask the question. So it's not that people were letting that be passed by.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you can see, like when Maddie went after Elizabeth Beck, if you don't act right, one of the things they do, a lot of things, they try to shame you. They try to hurt you with your voters. They try to ostracize you. They try to make sure you will fail because you will not be given any. The information won't necessarily make it to you. There are a lot of things they can do.
That definitely happens at Commissioner's Court. The information from staff
Yes,
not making it
not
to the
making
people
it.
and punishing by taking away staff and all that kind of
Right.
thing.
But then at the same time, when it's their side misbehaving, it's like let it ride. Beau French, Islamic phobia. I mean, look at the Tarrant GOP they were trying to attempt voting where you can only vote in your precinct. These are, I mean, so and they.
Oh, you don't think all those rules apply to them, do you? Oh, come on.
Yeah. So I would love then to know, like, okay, let's say what would be some of your guidance or advice to just like, okay, if we were going to be able to build more people power, more people of color power, more progressive power, more big blue city power, that would be great. What are some steps, ideas, as I think our kind of thing we say on the podcast often is the Fort Worth vote in May of 2027 is going to be the bat signal for 2028 if we can ever beat fascism. And because Tarrant County is the largest swing county in America, right, and Fort Worth is 47% of that county, so therefore Fort Worth is the front lines of our democracy. And so
if you believe that, put your money where your mouth is. Money. Just as money built this city and keeps those people in power, money will help us change it. 1,000 small donations can make a difference. I mean, we came within 3,000 votes of getting Taylor into...
Went 17 points Donald Trump in 2024.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was up against $5 million. Yeah.
You can make a difference. But, I mean, he's got to be able... I use Taylor as an illustration because he's so...
Present and current
now.
right now. Yeah.
Right. But he needs to be able to text people. He needs to be able to email people. He needs to be able to get people out there door to door. All of that costs money. Yard signs. It doesn't just poof show up. He doesn't have a millionaire or 3 or 4 up behind him. He's got us. Yeah. He's got the ground level working class people. I mean, he was late coming to the fundraiser we had at Preservation Hall because he had a union issue he had to deal with. This is a working man. He understands things happen in your life. He understands, maybe am I going to be able to make the rent this month?
Yeah.
Things that I can assure you Maddie Parker probably doesn't worry about. Mm-hmm. Or most of our council.
Yeah.
And the obliviousness of the stresses and strains that are going on for working class people right now just amazes me.
Yeah.
Just amazes me
Yeah.
that your comfort is so important to you that you will punish anyone who challenges your comfort without looking to see, oh, maybe that's why they're so mad.
Yeah, and that was the illustration of, I feel like, the frustration of right now, like the mayor is on this like massive PR tour where she got the front magazine cover of the Fort Worth magazine, and it was titled about her thick skin, dealing with activist stunts, and getting on podcasts. So it's sad because I feel like she's villainizing the people.
She is.
And when you look at like I know Zoran Mandami in New York is different, but like when he stood with his people, how much Trump has folded when they were next to each other talking, like how you looked at him, like how you looked at New Power. So it's like
that was creepy.
It was, but he's looked at Zoran more glowy than he ever looked
Trump
at Mayor
was
Parker.
creepy, not Mandami.
But,
let me make sure.
But he looked so glowy more than to a Democratic socialist than he did to his own Republican mayor.
Trump has no idea what a Democratic socialist is. He doesn't know what a fascist is or what a communist is. He barely knows what a capitalist is, even though he is one. But what he has managed to do is create this sort of ambient fear and anxiety and rage that it's just out in the air. I mean, I find myself losing my temper more easily these days. And there have been times I've thought, oh my God, what is wrong with you? And it's like it's right here. It is right here. And you see it in the way people drive. You see it in the way they respond to each other. You see it, people pulling out guns and shooting somebody a housekeeper who came to the wrong house. I mean, it is out there. People, this whole ambient fear, rage. I'm out of... And Trump has managed to do that to a whole country. And the Republicans, like Beau French, are just piling on. And Maddie's doing the same thing with her, what do you want to call it? Her...
Mercy Culture invitation to pray on...
Tour?
Oh, yeah.
Mercy Culture tour?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think if she's going to invite Mercy Culture to pray, then she needs to invite the Episcopal bishop to put a dome of prayer over them, and then the Baptist church to put... I mean, let's just spread this out to all the faith communities. The Hindu community here, the Buddhist community, the Muslim community here, just very devout. Let's have them pray it, okay? If we're going to do that, let's do it for everybody.
Yeah. I don't know if she'll do that because she endorsed John Huffman, the third character in the thing, and his priorities was Islamification.
That the mayor of Fort Worth is endorsing candidates right there is different.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
It didn't happen back then. It started happening, probably after Bolin, I'm betting. I haven't researched that, so.
Well, I know Mayor Price did. Yeah. She endorsed people.
Yes, I know she did too.
Yeah.
Well, to move on to our next segment, we also got video from folks from the Gather talking about what do we do about the Fort Worth Way. So I thought this would be very interesting to get lots of perspectives on how do we deal with this mess.
We get out of the Fort Worth Way only by engaging entire communities. Those folks who have been on the outside, who have been frustrated with where this city is going and feeling like their voice hasn't been heard. It is only by finding community together can we do this. It's voting, right? It's getting people to show up. When your municipal elections only have 8% turnout, the Fort Worth Way is dictating where the city goes. We vote, we change it.
I think the way to get out of the Fort Worth Way is to continue to speak truth to power and challenge situations when it's hard. Show up, speak up, say the hard things, even if it makes people feel uncomfortable, because that's worth doing. That makes it so that people who may not have a voice are spoken up for. And we're making sure that people who might otherwise be pushed to the margins within our community are brought to the center, and we have unity with everyone.
Getting out of the Fort Worth mindset to me requires retraining how we think about listening. Like, I think a lot of times, because I've participated in the programming, where the city comes out and wants to get input and feedback from people, and I've put my stickers, on the things I want to see, and though I feel like that doesn't even capture anything of like the why. Why do people want to see these things? Why do they think those things are actually going to solve the problems that we have? And I think if we actually got past, that's why, at the Gather, we really try to practice listening in a different way to each other. Because I think when you do, that's how you get like at the core of something and like the more interesting things. Because a lot of times people lead with one problem, but if you really ask them questions and you listen, you figure out that there's something else underlying that, and we can actually solve that thing. So to me, that's how we get out, is just listening differently and asking better questions.
I wish we just would center people more. I feel like if we led with compassion and empathy and just understanding just like the everyday plight of a like average family in Fort Worth, and there doesn't really ever seem to be a willingness to really consider the average family in Fort Worth in making decisions.
Yeah, I think part of the Fort Worth way is also tied to just trying to preserve power. I think a lot of times, and recently, I think we've been talking about, speaking truth to power. And I would add to that it's really about speaking truth to people who would abuse their power. Because I don't think like power in and of itself is a bad thing. We should all feel powerful and be able to do things. But it's like, how do we use that power? Do we use it with people, or are we using it over people? And I feel like there's too much using it over people, and that is like negatively impacting people's day-to-day lives, because we're choosing to preserve our power and not connecting to the ability of like empowering other people.
The reason the Fort Worth Way excels and is so effective is because it's baked into what we see as American capitalism today. And so there's a dependency for people who want to earn a paycheck, earn a living, have a career in any of those sectors to eventually get absorbed by this establishment Fort Worth Way bubble and do work on their behalf. So one of the big ways we've got to try to break people away from this is understanding that how they make a living and what they do in those roles, it's vitally important that they're doing that for the benefit of community. And if they do it for the benefit of this Fort Worth Way establishment, unfortunately, community does not get helped in the ways that we need it. Even if they're in roles that are designed to help community, they unfortunately won't be. So we've got to start shifting the mentality to help people understand that all of their education, all of their networks, all of their relationships are power for the people and not for a rich establishment trying to keep control and a handle on the things that benefit them versus all of us.
So I've been doing this podcast for 5 years, and I feel like when you do something weekly, you're almost like someone who watches the stock market. And I feel like I've seen Fort Worth kind of go up and down, and that potential of, and even how you talked about money, you're like, if you believe that, then put your money where your mouth is. And I think like that is, to me, like, how do we tell a large enough story so everyone understands that this is Fort Worth, like Fort Worth is the epicenter of extremism, because our sleepiness in Fort Worth Way establishment is kind of enabling the power structures of today. And I feel like we need an anti-establishment, leadership and campaign where we can fund and support working class people to run, predominantly Black and brown people. I think one of the things that are going to be fascinating is what do white progressives or white moderates do, because ultimately Deborah Peoples lost because white Dems voted for Maddie Parker. And so what do we do this time in the sense of, and I'm not saying either are good or bad, James Tellerico versus Jasmine Crockett, if that happens, Elisa Simmons versus a white counterpart at Judge. I think these are going to be the parts of, like, if we're going to activate Black and brown people, white people have to support Black and brown candidates.
Absolutely. Jeanette Martinez went through that whole thing. There was a white male in that race that had voted Republican, and there were Democrats.
Yeah.
you all know the neighborhood listserv. It can be. Well, it sort of blew up in my neighborhood because people were like, I can't believe you're being absolutely racist about Jeanette. And they, what?
And they were, yeah.
And they were. They were absolutely. And part of it was she earned a really nice salary for the county. And it was like, how dare, I mean, this was the underlying thing. How dare this Hispanic woman make more than $100,000 a year? I can't tell you how talk of her salary came up. Do you know how much she makes? Like, okay, and the problem
A living wage?
is, because how dare she, a brown woman, make that much money? I mean, that was truly, and we called them on it again and again. And of course, they were all just, pearl clutching was epic. But, I mean, it really, the racism just comes out again, and among Democrats as well as Republicans. So white Democrats are going to have to gut up and go, here's a thought with the best candidate for the role. Yeah. And right now, that needs to be a black or a brown person, and my bias is it should be a woman, but that's because I really right now in this moment in our country, I think the voices of women also need to be held up.
I mean, looking back at who's been making all these decisions for the last 30 years, it's probably a good time to switch to somebody else. And when looking at the majority of who is in this community, that should be the larger voice of who is leading this community. So absolutely. I think people are constantly asking me if I'm going to run for things again. And I'm like, no, that is in the past. And my focus now is to support black and brown people to these roles in this community.
That's where my emphasis has been going more and more, both in my church work and in the work in the elections, is to support candidates of color, Indigenous people, all of that. We've got to get those voices. We've got to fund them. We've got to find them. We've got to encourage them and fund them. And then we all need to shut up and we, white people, need to shut up and listen.
To me, what I feel like looking at the Fort Worth Way establishment who is seeing what happened at DEI, I mean, you had 72 people speak at DEI.
Let me make an observation here. Do you know the phrase Imago Dei means, it's Latin for in the image of God? Do you know how it's spelled? DEI. Imago Dei.
Wow.
And that's what DEI is all about. It's honoring the image of God, no matter who is embodying it.
You could have used that for public comments, Katie. but
you still can on December 2nd.
Yeah, December 2nd, you can come and share that one. But what I think what that DEI vote and then the Patrice, 45 people count, the Patrice, it was diverse people. And I think the Fort Worth Way who was watching, I feel like they're starting to understand that they can't go left. Like they can't go, let's say, anyone on that council, Michael Crane, Macy Hill, Lauersdorf, they can't go right. They have to go.
Oh God, I hope you're right. I do. That they think they've gone as far right as they can go.
Then let me ask you, my next question.
Because they've gone pretty far right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Then my next question would be, if somehow they got that part right and they started supporting a black or brown person, how much of this fight in Fort Worth should be about an anti-establishment win, where it's not like still Bass or Perot picked. Like, okay, let's say a black woman runs, and then let's say the money goes to the black woman. And that black woman wins, but it's now the same money behind Maddie Parker. Is that enough, or should we be asking for more on our push for what we're wanting?
We definitely should be asking for more. Go for broke.
Yeah.
Go for it all.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to have audacious goals, things that scare you. I mean, if you're in a meeting and you look around, everyone's going, I don't know, you're probably on the right track right now. I truly believe that. We need to scare ourselves. We need to push ourselves into territory we're not totally comfortable with to make this change. That's how you make any change.
Yep.
You have to gut up and do it. And again, I'm a privileged white woman. It's easy for me to say, oh, take all those risks. As a black person, I don't know that I'm like, yeah, right, you go do that, white lady, not me. I could get killed. So obviously we have to be smart about how we do this. And there are times when, as an ally, I can stand up and say something that a black person or a brown person might not be able to say. And if we all agree that and they're good with it, I'll be glad to go do it. Mm-hmm. But I only want to do that when we're all clear that it's better for me to do it than you to do it, because 90% of the time it needs to be you doing it now, because there's been enough of people like me doing it.
One thing I'm curious about is I agree with everything that's been said so far, but in your article, like about the tiers and everything, it sounds like what we've just talked about, how to get out of the Fort Worth Way, really only addresses that second tier. And so much of the third tier, the people who are put in positions of power by the second tier, like not outside of city council, like corporate stuff, the Fort Worth Way is so seeped into the minds of all of city staff and all sorts of city leaders that is electing the right people enough to uproot all of that ideology.
It's not enough, but it's a start. Mm-hmm. What has to happen is, well, this is my bias, we need to have better and more complete news coverage of everything that's happening.
Mm-hmm. More bold news coverage, too.
Bold, did you say? Bold?
They just want to tell us there's an HEB coming, which is exciting, but that's.
Oh, and they want to tell us an HEB's coming in Fort Worth when it's in Burleson, or that is not Fort Worth. Let me just point that out. So there is a spoiled white person talking. I want one near me.
I agree. I mean, East Side would crush with an HEB. We would rock it.
Oh, we would. And it would be nice to have a grocery store, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So we're not a food desert.
Yes. I'd be interested how much does the cowboy culture play into the Fort Worth Way? And that's something we bring up a lot in the pod. Is like
cowboy culture.
Yeah, it's like.
Are you talking about the football cowboy culture?
No, stockyard.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I'm just being smart.
Well, the Dallas Cowboys have also been on a 30-year losing record, like Texas with the Republicans.
I grew up in West Texas with Cowboys.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I remember about the Cowboys is that fair play was really important to them. And out there, they didn't really care who their neighbor was, because their neighbor was 60 miles away. But what they did care about was if they needed that neighbor would show up. So there's it's conservative out there, but it's a very pragmatic conservatism, because everyone knows it doesn't pay to piss off that neighbor that's 60 miles away, because they may be the only person you have that can come help you, that's close enough to come help you. So I was in college before it dawned on me that Miss Ann and Miss Sue, who were ranchers in that county, were lesbians. I was like, oh my gosh, of course they were. And everybody knew it, and nobody cared, because they ran their ranch well. They showed up for everything. They did what everybody needed. Everybody was fine. Nobody talked about it. Sort of the way the city was about Van Cliburn. Fort Worth never cared that Van Cliburn was gay, as long as he didn't do it in the street and scare the horses. I mean, they literally said things like that. They were not going to say anything bad. When his partner sued him for palimony, city of Fort Worth, they never mentioned it. Just was like, wasn't going to happen. And that's part of the cowboy culture too. When maybe you don't. When Ann Richards was running against Clady Williams, and he was out in Midland where he lived, and he had a bunch of reporters there around a campfire, and the weather was bad, and he said, well, Texas weather's just like rape. If it's going to happen, you just have to lie back and enjoy it.
Whoa.
I mean, it lost the gubernatorial race for him because the reporters reported it. The other thing that lost the race for him was in their debate, he refused to shake her hand. And I tell you, cowboy mamas all over West Texas went, well, that's the rudest thing I ever heard. And every cowboy was like, oh, I can't vote for him. Cowboys listen to their mamas. Those cowboys did. So I'm just telling you, you can't just say the cowboys are all right-wing racist. Most of them are racist. That's inevitable. But there's a pragmatism there that can be appealed to. Absolutely. Is my point.
Yeah. And there's, vaqueros, there's all different types of, black cowboys.
Oh, absolutely.
I think to me, it's like I see Betsy Price shows up there's like this influx of like Visit Fort Worth dollars. There's a lot of like, I see Governor Abbott come to Dickies Arena, and there's like cowboy hats everywhere. And I see Beto O'Rourke come to Dickies Arena, and there's no cowboy hats. And I'm just like,
oh,
what?
Some of that's so performative.
Yeah,
Those cowboy hats have never seen a cow. I mean,
I didn't get my first cowboy hat till I was elected office because you can't ride in the stock show parade
without
cowboy attire.
That's exactly right. And you'll notice those cowboy hats don't have the sweat stains around the brim either that every hat I grew up with did.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of that in
costume.
Is costume.
Yeah, and it feels like they can't sell republicanism, but they can sell cowboys. I feel like Governor Dan Patrick with the conservative Hollywood that they're trying to build, with their film dollars. It's always been something I've been trying to watch on, like, how do we get the cowboy back?
I'm glad if we get the film
people.
dollars, as long as they're hiring from my neighborhood as well as from other neighborhoods. That's what I care about.
They're not.
Wesley keeps an eye on that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Taylor he's doing amazing things for the city of Fort Worth. And he's hiring a lot of people he went to high school with. Well, he went to high school on the west side of Fort Worth.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get that that's how you hire a lot of extras. You call up your buddies and say, come on, I need you down here.
You guys know Patrice Jones made a show. Yeah. Patrice Jones is on a scene.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't
Landman.
watch. I keep watching because I have friends that are I'm watching in the
All you have to do
background.
is go on social media and everybody posts
Tells
little
what-
screenshots of themselves.
And so I'm like, oh, there they are. Yeah.
Patrice Jones' shot was perfect, though. She looked great. Well, Katie, thank you so much for coming on to the 817 podcast. It was really exciting. So we really genuinely thank you. And I'm sure the listeners are going to love it.
Yeah, it was great to have you. Everybody keeps coming back to this article, as old as it is. And, our
100%.
first goal was to push and see if we could get an updated, refreshed article, but I think this is even better. So
Yeah, and
thank
I
you
was
so
only
much.
12 when I wrote it. So that's pretty
There
good,
you
right?
go.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Very impressive. Well, there you have it, an episode with Katie Sherrod on her 30-year anniversary of Who Runs Fort Worth. Now we're going to move into a second episode that will be posted later whenever Wesley gets it to you. But you will have 2 episodes this week as you get ready for the holidays. The following week, we will not be doing an episode, so enjoy.